Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pits of Motor Chaos. It's your host, Dave. In just a minute, I'll have a special guest, APU Dragster driver slash minister, Mike Bucher, on the air with me. So hold on. Let me get him on the phone.
Hello?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. You're live on the air in the Pits of Motor Chaos. So how was your weekend in Indy? Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was a good weekend. It's always fun to do that. There's some stress, but it's always good when the parachutes come out. That's the biggest exhale ever. And we had some good rounds, some good races.
So first question I got for you, Mike, is how did you get involved in drag racing?
Well, I was 3 days old at my first race. My dad is in the Drag Race Hall of Fame. His car's in Don Garlett's museum. He started way back in the 60s, front engine slingshots and front engine twin, top gas. He won the last top gas national event when it was twin engine front engine cars, and then he went to top fuel. But I grew up in it. That's all I ever knew was drag racing.
So at what age did you begin drag racing?
Well, the thing is, I was supposed to drive my dad's top fuel car when I turned 18, but he died when I was 15, and he was only 37. That was pretty devastating for me, and but that led me to ask the Lord in my heart, and a peace and a joy came into me that changed me forever, and I wanted to tell the drag racing world that message, and the Lord basically said, no, you're going to be a pastor. So instead of, I tried to get into racing, but every door closed, and God called me to ministry, and I pretty much had to put it away, he died in 77, by like 1988, I just put it away completely, and it wasn't until 4 years ago, Antron Brown and Brian Karate, who's his crew chief, they said, hey, we're going to help you get your A-Fuel license, which is A-Fuel is injected nitro, and it runs in top alcohol class. And I'm like, really? Wow. And so I didn't really drive anything until 4 years ago. Now, about 15 years ago, my brother has a Super Crown car, and he let me get a license in that. And that's about 185 miles an hour, 780s. And I'll tell you, that back then, that scared me. That was drive. Going from driving nothing to anything like that is, it's hard to describe because, it's not speed, it's acceleration. A jet goes 185 miles an hour when it leaves the runway, but it takes 42 seconds to get there. But if you got there in 2 seconds, it'd make you pee your pants, And
right.
So I did that, like you said, 15 years ago, but then nothing until 4 years ago.
So 4 years ago, you jumped in a APU Dragster going with 95% nitro?
Yep, we're 95% nitro.
So how was the experience jumping in the APU Dragster?
Well, it was 4 years ago, and I was at Las Vegas, and Tony Schumacher was there to sign for my license, and I had Brian Karate there watching, and the first run is supposed to be half track, and so it was a 620 at 210 miles an hour, and there's no way to describe it. It doesn't seem real. It seems like a dream. There's nothing in this world that prepares you. Like I said, it's not the speed; it's acceleration because they're so fast. And but you know what? I had asked for the procedure from the guy on the car. Anthony DeCero had this Nitro University, and I asked for every step from the time the time started, and I rehearsed it thousands of times of what to do in the car, and that's what I'd gone to Frank Hawley's driving school right before that, and that was the key. He teaches things in the science of the mind, and I recommend anybody who's going to race go to that school. And so, I went to the school, and a lot has to do with just how you prepare, and part of it is rehearsing it in your mind. And so, before I did the fuel car, I probably made at minimum 1,000 runs in my mind, and so everything went smooth. The first time it was a 620 210. Then the next one you go a little further down the track, and it was a 610 220, which is basically all you have to do to get a license. You got to run 2 over that. And then the third run was to 1,000 foot. It was a 585, 241 miles an hour, and that was faster than my dad ever went in top fuel. And that was in a car that didn't even have a blower on it. And that was kind of a surreal thing. And, it's 6 runs to get a license, but if you're upgrading, it's only 3. So I went and got my Supercomp license with Frank Hawley's school, and then I was able to do 3 runs in the APU car. Because it's a lot more expensive to drive that car.
Now, it had to have been pretty exciting having Tony Schumacher sign off for you.
Yeah, I got a pretty cool picture because something broke on my helmet, and he's like, hold on. And he goes to his pit, and he gives me his helmet. So I got a really cool picture. It's on my Facebook page of me wearing his helmet.
Wow.
The U.S. Army thing.
Nice. So now, how many years you been a minister now?
This church, we planted this church from nothing 28 years ago.
Wow.
And the Lord's really blessed it. We got a really nice building, messages on the radio. We do the live streaming, because of the pandemic, and actually the church has never been better. There's a lot of new people coming because a lot of churches shut down, and we've been back for like 14 weeks now. And you know what? It's that's my calling. That's what I'm here to do first. Is to point people to the Lord, and my gift is explaining the Bible. There's a lot of messed up churches, a lot of messed up Christians, but the guy with nail prints in his hands is the real deal, and that book I can defend all day. And I've heard it said many hammers have been worn out on the anvil of the Bible. And if somebody wants to attack it, good luck, because I can defend it. I've heard every argument, and I can defend anything that's said against it. And so I know that book. And my connection, there's about 50 drivers and people in drag racing that listen to my messages. Don Garlett's wife used to listen to them for years. And there's a whole lot of racers right now that I send them out on YouTube, and they say they listen to them. And so, Don Garlett himself, I saw him at SEMA show last year, and he says, I'm listening to your messages. And he goes, some of them are kind of long, but he was listening to them, and that was kind of cool.
Big Daddy Don Garlett.
Yep.
And while we're talking,
my dad's car is in his museum, and it was about the 3rd car that ever got to the museum in 1978. When my dad died, my mom said I could have the car, and then Garlett's called up and said he wanted it for the museum, and it was the best thing we ever did, giving it to him.
And while we're talking about hope and stuff like that, prayers go out to Dom Lagana and Richie Crampton and Jake Sanders.
Yep. No, we had a men's prayer meeting this morning, and we do it every Tuesday, and we prayed for those guys. That's not good.
Yeah, I heard Jake Sanders walked out of the hospital, I think, today.
Yeah.
Because I don't know him and Richie, when I read they were both non-life-threatening injuries, but Dom's is life-threatening injuries.
Right. The only thing I heard was that there was a fire, and he couldn't get out. So you have like the smoke inhalation and all that. That's the only thing that I've been told. So, and we just got to pray for him. That's all I can say.
Yes, you need a bunch of prayer warriors. Yep. So what's the fastest speed you've gone in the APU Dragster, Mike?
275 miles an hour.
And what track was that at?
That was Houston last year, and believe it or not, it was a run that I had to pedal it. The car got out about 300 feet and shook really hard, and it was just a reaction. I stepped off it and hit it again, and it took off, and it ran 275. It was only 543 and a quarter mile, but it was 275, and so that was my fastest miles per hour.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So now, do you have any drag racers that you look up to?
Oh gosh, well, Big Daddy would probably be on the top. Well, my dad would be on the top of the list, but Garlett's for sure. Would be someone that I always idolized, and There's different ones for different reasons. They got different things about them. Tony Schumacher says he's a machine, and he's just someone who's just real consistent. When it comes to reaction times, I think Antron Brown has been the best for 10 years up until right now. Believe it or not, I think Justin Ashley might be the best right now. But Antron has been the best for the last 10 years easily. But Justin, matter of fact, Justin just raced Antron in Indy and had like an 023 light against him.
Wow.
Which is crazy, in a top fuel car. And it isn't like he's lucky. He does it often,
Yep.
But, as far as driving, like I said, I know a lot of them, and friends with a lot of them, but Tony and Antron have probably been the two that have helped me the most. Tony's told me a lot about, staging and just being shallow, and that's what I'm working on right now, is trying to be real, real shallow, because at Columbus, I ran a 529, and they said that I rolled in way too deep, and it would have been a 527. And so the next run, first round, which you don't usually do in eliminations, I was real shallow, and I ran a 528. 528.0, we actually tied for the low of the round with Jackie Frick, and we got it on speed. And so, when you get lane choice, and then in that case, when it's low of the round, you get to pick which pair you are, which can sometimes be an advantage. You don't want to be the first pair, in the next round, so you can watch other people. So, but if I had not stayed shallow, we would not have gotten, not only would we have not gotten the low of the round, we probably wouldn't even got lane choice, because I had to race Josh Hart. He had a 531, we had a 528. So if I had rolled in far, or hadn't, we would have lost ET. And lane choice might have made a difference there.
So how many more events are you going to run this year?
You know what? I can race as long as there's sponsors, and everybody sponsoring me. They're doing it because they believe. And, I'm promoting a ministry called Hope Over Heroin. They do these rallies all over, and they're real effective. They have a house where 80 guys live, where they get them off drugs. They work. They get them education. They get them out of the culture of drugs. And there's just a lot of fruit in that. And so I'm promoting them. This last race at Indy, I brought 3 guys out on Friday. I let them help and be a part of the crew, and then 3 different guys on Saturday. And I'm giving them one-on-one time, and I spend time with talking to them about their story, share my story, going over some Bible stuff with them. In Columbus, we had like 40 guys come out, and that was really neat. But anyone sponsoring me, they're doing it because they see, that this is a good ministry to promote. And what I like to do is I like to put little kids in the car, and I talk to them about not touching drugs. Everybody wants to reach addicts, which is okay. I want to help someone get off drugs, but I want to keep people from ever trying them. And if Big Daddy had told me at 10 years old to go stand on my head on the starting line, I would have listened to him. And so these kids, they think I'm Big Daddy. They think I'm something, and I'll let them sit in the car, and I can see they're wide-eyed, and they're just loving it. And then I talk to them about, hey, look, you want to do something like this? You can never touch drugs. And so that right there is an intangible. If I turn one kid from drugs, it's cheaper to pay for the race car. And so right now, anyone sponsoring me, Chip Lawson with Strutmasters, Brian Karate with Master Pizza. I've got Gene Lamshire with TFC Trucking, Dave Nelson Trucking, a company called Clean Tool that makes his wife called the Glosser. Bill Stewart, he's sponsoring me. Mike Ashley with Realty Warehouse. Bob Wynn is starting to come up with some oil from AMSOIL. All these people, Mufflers for Less, and I don't want to leave people out. There's a guy named Jim Therese. Mufflers for Less is local. But they're all people who, they're helping me not because of the racing. They're helping me because I want to use the racing for something else. And so promoting Hope Over Heroin, helping people get off drugs. And listen, when I'm at a race and I wear the Hope Over Heroin t-shirt, I got people constantly coming up to me, talking about their son, their daughter, their brother, their mom, their dad, sometimes crying because they died. Sometimes they want me to go visit them in treatment. Sometimes they want me to pray for them. I've got addicts come up to me and say, I'm 4 months sober, I'm struggling, will you pray for me? And so there's that side of it. And then there's like you said, the kids. There's been so many young people, anywhere from like 18 down to 5, that I'll reach out to. If they're walking by, I say, hey, you ever sat in the dragster? And I just let them come in and do that. And I've had parents shake my hand. I had a 15-year-old find me on Facebook. He said it was the best day of his life. And, the sponsors, they like that. And so I basically just say, hey, there's a race coming up. You want to help? You want to do it? For Columbus, they did. And actually, I had that for the Gator Nationals. They had sponsored for the Gator Nationals. And when that got canceled, I was able to just go do Columbus. So that was sponsored paying for that. And then Indy, I just threw it out there, and I had enough to say, yep, we'll do it. And so the next possible one is Bowling Green. It's a regional race, and it's August 28th, 29th, and 30th. So that's the next possible one. So, and then I'm looking at maybe Las Vegas at the end of the year if they have those events. What's hard is you don't know what races are even going to happen right now.
Right.
And that's the issue. So.
Yep. Now, who are your main crew members that keep that dragster running?
Well, really this. I'm driving somebody else's car. Robin Sansel is the owner, and he's the driver, and he's driven for like 30 years. He's driven Top Alcohol 20 years. And then his son, Tony, and he's the crew chief, and man, oh man, is he brilliant. And I'm learning a ton from him. He's the best non-driver teacher of drivers I've ever had. I've had a lot of drivers talk to me, but there's things he's telling me, teaching me, and it has to do with so he can tune the car, because the driver's got to be consistent. Everything's got to be the same, or they can't tune it, because everything, you do a different length burnout, you're not letting, you're letting the clutch out too long, you're backing up. There's all these things, the driver doesn't do the same every time. It's impossible for the crew chief to tune it right, because the variables, there's too many variables on it. So Tony is somebody who probably does not get the recognition or the credit. And the thing is, this team, the Samson's team, they basically get by with a bunch of worn out parts, and somehow they make it. I mean, this car literally, there's one car that no one can beat, and it's the one Megan Meyer drives, and she won at Columbus. I've been in 2 finals. She's beat me twice. But then this past race, Indy, it was the same car, but it was her sister driving it, and that car is tough. That team's got 3 cars, and their other 2 cars can't beat that car. And but I'll tell you what, the Samsels, I think they got the next best car in the country, personally. I think when that thing, they're stepping up, it's so consistent. At Indy is 535, 533, 532, 532. That's so good. And they're real close. They can run in the 20s. And a lot has to do with, when you have newer parts, you can run a little harder. They're trying to make things last. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that I get more sponsors who say, you know what, I like the vision, I like what you're doing. And I've had a lot of comments from the last couple of races that basically are saying my driving, is as good as anyone right now. And I asked the Lord to help me to do that. When I'm about to stage that car, I was like, Lord, you got to do this. And I really feel like He's helping me. I had 2 050 lights and eliminations, reaction times, and both of them I stayed shallow. And so a lot of times drivers will go in deep and they'll fudge on the reaction time. But I had 050 lights and stayed in shallow. And so if I can keep doing that, put it this way, this car can win any race it shows up to. And so Robin's the owner, the normal driver, Tony's the crew chief's son, and then Cole is his grandson, and he's really good. He does the clutch, and he also straps me in. The kid's about 260 pounds, and when he straps you in, you can't even breathe. And then he got a guy, Grayson, who is excellent, hardworking, a lot of integrity. This team is so meticulous in detail. I'm blown away. And I've driven 5 different cars for 4 different teams, and I've never seen anyone so meticulous as these guys.
Now, what do you enjoy most about being a drag racer, Mike?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's interesting when you think about it. The actual racing down the track, it doesn't last too long. It isn't like you're on a Sunday drive going, hey, look around, this is really nice. It's literally hold your breath, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it shoots and you're done. And it's amazing how much preparation you do for something that's so short. But I like talking to people about the Lord. I feel like God's calling me to be a light in the drag racing world. And so for me, people are the most important. I hope over Heroin guys coming out, I want to be a good influence on the guys around me. The Samsels had a little great-grandson there, and I got to spend time with him and talking to him about the Lord. And, when it comes to the physical racing, there's a lot of work to it. My job is the fuel and the parachutes, and then I just got to get my head straight. And there's stress, a lot of stress. And before Columbus, I hadn't driven. Last time I drove was Indianapolis, and I was 9 months wait. And so when it's that long of a gap, the first 2 runs, you're trying to get over the shock of the thing, because it is just ridiculous how fast it is. And then by the 3rd run, it's like, okay, here's all I got to do. I got to do it all right. But Columbus by the 7th run, I was dozing off, sitting waiting in the lane. I got so relaxed and calm. And but what I did discover one thing at Columbus. Previously, they tow the dragster up. Usually the driver rides in the car, and they pull it up to the line. Well, there's some stress involved, because these guys pull this thing up, and if you're not paying attention and hit the brakes, you're going to drive the dragster right in the back of the tow vehicle. And I had done that once to a golf cart way back in the Gator Nationals last year, and it's like, this is too much stress. So Columbus, I just started walking up to the starting line. I said, guys, I'm going up. When you come up, I'll hop in, I'll get in the car. And it allows me to have time alone, time just to have my focus, my mind clear. And that's one of the things Frank Holly teaches. You cannot have anything on your mind except what's going on in that car. When I'm sitting there, they could have a circus going on both sides of the car, and I wouldn't notice anything happening. There's no one else there. I don't see anybody. I don't wave and look around to people. I want to get my eyes on what I'm doing. And for me, a lot of it's prayer. I just spend time with the Lord. I listen to worship music. And when the engine starts, all I can say, and some people might make fun of this, but you know what? Something comes over me, and I know it's the Lord. I know it's His presence. And I have a peace beyond any peace I've ever felt in my life when that engine's starting. And it's like, and it becomes the automatic, and it's like I'm watching somebody else do it. But so the preparation leading up to it, again, I actually hate the wait. There's a lot of waiting in drag racing. So the favorite part, I think, is just when the engine starts, and it's the whole routine is, brake on, clutch in. They spin it over once, turn the electric on, they fire it up. He adjusts the idle, looks at the other crew, tells me to turn the nitro on. I have to trim it back turn it all the way on and trim it to 100 pounds. And then this team, they push me forward. They don't want me to use the clutch to roll up to the water. They push me to the water. He gives the signal, and I just off the clutch, 1001, not even 1002. And the throttle pedal only goes about an eighth of an inch to do the burnouts. And burnout's kind of violent. It kind of shakes a lot. I don't necessarily like doing long burnouts, but it's just 1001 and maybe not even 1002. Then I let off the gas, let it coast for a second so it's not bouncing. Grab the brake. Then I have to trim the fuel to 60 pounds, put it in reverse, and then they don't want you heating up the clutch, so you let it out for like 1001, 1002, push it in, and you're coasting. And if you need it again, you let it out 1001, 1002, and then it coasts again. Usually it just needs a couple times, and it's got enough momentum to go backwards. They get about 6 feet past the starting line, stop, put it forward because someone's got to adjust the wheelie bar. You don't want the car in reverse because guys have gotten killed by being rolled over by these things. And so the crew chief usually looks at I think he's adjusting the idle, and then he'll go up right at the starting line. And the line of sight in these cars is not, you're barely seeing above the body, and it's so long that it's hard to tell where the wheels are in the starting line. So he'll bring the car up about a foot from the starting line, stop, he goes back, he turns the air bottle on, and then he checks the idle one more time. He looks at the other car when they're ready. All I see is a finger in front of my face. And so I let off the brake completely. I use the clutch just lightly to let it roll forward, light the first bulb, wait for them to light their bulb, and I pump the brake. And then for me, it's visor down, fuel all the way on, step off the clutch. And what I'm trying to be real careful right now is just easing into the second bulb, staging shallow. And then yellow green, hand goes off the brake, both hands on the steering wheel for about a second and a half. And then the right hand goes on the parachute lever by half track. and then you got to throw the chutes before the finish, usually a little bit before, because you want them to pop pretty much at it. And then you hit the chutes, you grab the brake as though there's no chutes, because if you wait and there aren't chutes, by the time you realize that you just missed any chance of stopping. And so hit chutes, grab brake, feel the chutes pop, it throws you forward. It's the best feeling in the world, and it's the biggest exhale in the world. And then fuel gets turned off, and then as the engine's kind of idling down, kill the electric. And so you go from chaos, a hurricane of chaos, noise, and violence, to like drinking tea on the beach in Hawaii. It's the most calm, peaceful thing as you're coasting. And anymore, while I'm coasting, I start taking my belts off and undoing my helmet, because when you get to the end, it's kind of rush. You got to get out of there, especially if you win for the next round. And so, from the time the engine starts, the time you get out, it's a pretty cool thing. I don't know if there's anyone. I guess the parachutes are the best feeling.
No, is there anything?
The car's got to stop. And the only other thing I can say, when I ran the 528, that was one of those runs where, man, it just planted me back in the seat, and I was just holding on for dear life, and I knew that was a good run, And those are, when you have those kind of runs, and it just goes straight as an arrow, that's a cool feeling there.
Now, is there anything that you hate about drag racing?
The waiting. You get there's a lot. You get there on Thursday, you set up, and usually for our class, you don't run till Friday night, and it's just waiting. And then even when it's time to race, even in between rounds, we run at 10 o'clock, and we don't run till 1:30. But it just, man, you get everything done, and you're just kind of, a lot of times it's a hot day, and it just, there's just a lot of waiting. And then even you roll through the lanes, you sit there and you wait, you strap in, you wait. I'm kind of like, let's go, let's get up and let's do this thing, So,
yeah, like if you get oil down and you gotta wait, sit in a hot fire suit.
Oh, right. Well, and that's in Columbus, 3 pairs in front of us, the guy went to sand, and so most of the drivers stayed in the cars, but I got out. I was like the 3rd pair, and I'm like, what? Because it was like 91 degrees there, and so I got out, because there's no need to be dripping sweat, and believe me, you get out, and when you're done with each run, the fire suit's soaked, and the helmet's soaked. They got this little fan that I set the helmet on, and it airs it out real good. But anyway.
Now, do you have any favorite tracks to race on?
Well, I haven't raced on a lot of tracks. I mean, I raced Norwalk, I raced Indy, Houston, Dallas, Gainesville, Columbus now. My favorite is Norwalk. I mean, Norwalk is the best track in the country, period. And whatever track's number 2 is not even close. The meticulous detail, the preparation of the track, the people, the owner, Bill Bader Jr., the way they treat people, there is no track better. The only one I've been told is close is Charlotte, and I've been to Charlotte. And it's nice. It's massive, but man, Norwalk is just, everything about it is the best. The bathrooms are like hospital bathrooms. They have showers that are as clean as, like you said, a hospital, where a lot of times the drag strip, the biggest rub on them is, or negative is, the bathrooms are disgusting, And you go to Norwalk, and it's like you're in a hospital bathroom. It's just perfect, and they have $1 a pound ice cream, but he got shut down all year. It's kind of a shame, because they're used to having really big events, and they couldn't operate with just little bracket races, so all the big events got shut down. And Bill's a great guy. He's giving me a lot of free passes for people with Hope Over Heroin to come out, and high school kids and stuff. So Norwalk would be the favorite.
Now, where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
Well, the fire suit I have is the best you can get. Impact, and it's what Don Schumacher's drivers use, and you're talking $2,000 or $3,000. Well, they had a Spencer Massey fire suit being sold as a collector's item on eBay for $185, and I called the guy who had it, and I'm like, is this is still good date-wise because they're only good for 5 years, and it was good. And so I got that Firesuit, had my own Hope Over Heroin things put on it. And then Antron gave me a Hans device, boots, and gloves. And then through Antron, I got a half-price deal on a good helmet from Impact. It's identical to what Tony Schumacher's helmet is. And so everything I have is Impact, and then it's a company called Stand 21. That's the boots and the gloves.
Now, Mike, have you reached any milestones in your drag racing career so far?
Well, the first time I ever raced a competition in 2018 was against Marty Thacker, and a great racer, champion racer, and he ran a 5:42.9, and I ran a 5:42.3. He had an 0:43 reaction, I had 0:24, so my first time ever actually won. That was huge. So, and probably nothing will ever compare to that, because I didn't even know I won. And before I got out of the car, I hear him next to me, because he pulled next to me at the shutdown. He said, "Good job, Mike." And I was just like, felt like it was a dream. And then, going to the Gator Nationals, my first national event, qualified 16th. And race number 1, Sean Cowley won that race only 17 times in history. The number 16 beat number 1. And then actually that event went to the final round only 4 times in history. That's the 4th time in history. Number 16 went to the final on top alcohol. So that was huge. And my dad was runner up there twice, and ended up losing in the final with Megan Meyer. But everybody expected her to be there. Nobody expected me to be there. And that was huge. And that gave a lot of exposure to Hope Over Heroin. It was neat to go to Indy last year. My first run down the track at the U.S. Nationals was a 5:31. And at the time, that was my best run ever. So that was a milestone. So my first race, winning, first national event, going to the final, first time in Indy running a 5:31, first time down the track. That was huge. Those are all kind of neat things, And haven't won any event yet. Went to the final at Columbus again. That was big. Ran my first 5:20s at Columbus. And that guy, Jay Livingston, he's done amazing things with that track. That used to be one of the best tracks in the country, and it really went downhill and then they moved the national event out of there. And but now Jay Livingston has bought it. In the last 3 years, he has made it a really nice track. And it used to be a joke as far as how the surface was, because the cars couldn't go down it. And he had the best track prep we've had all year. Like they run a 5:28 on a 91-degree day. It was big.
Now, when you race, can you feel your dad's presence with you each time you run down the track?
I don't know if I would say that. I mean, I'm not, I don't know that people who died are hovering around us. I mean, I know the Lord is, but his memory there, and what really touches me is I have his people, who are his friends. Like a guy who raced with him and drove with him, Ted Wolf. He calls me up and he just says, your dad would be proud. And then, the guy named Mike Rose. And then there's just different people at different races who knew him will contact me. And the thing is, I do believe the Lord's helping me, and I believe, God's enabled me to do well with not a lot of runs. I'm only up to run 55. Josh Hart, I was talking to him at Columbus, and the car he's in, he said he's made 470 runs. And so I'm at a disadvantage, but somehow, and I think it's the Lord, I'm driving, the level I just shouldn't be. And so people see this, and again, there's a lot of people who are fans of my dad. He had the only Chevy in Top Fuel to have the record, win a national event. He was number 1 qualifier at Indy, 32-car field in 1973. And so he was the ultimate underdog. There was a time, and I could show you newspaper articles, where it said proud favorite Jim Bucher. And Garlett and Muldowney were at those races. And it said my dad was a proud favorite. And so from 73 to 77, he was huge. But like I said, he died in 77. But there was a few years, though, that he was really good. And so his fans over the years, because of Facebook and social media, will contact me and just tell me that, this is how neat it is, and I'm doing this. And then quite often say, because I'm doing well, your dad would be really proud. And that brings me to tears sometimes, because I just, I always wonder what would my dad think,
Right. Now, have you had a most embarrassing moment on the track in the dragster?
Well, okay, when I was, oh yeah, well, one of them was, okay, the first round of Gator Nationals against Sean Talley, when you sit in that car, you got to focus, you got to have your eyes, thinking about what you're doing, not looking to the right or to the left, and their staging lanes, everything's pretty level, but there was a place where the fans walked across was a little bit elevated, and that last year was the 50th anniversary of the Gator Nationals. They said it could have been the most attended drag race in history, and so we're pulling up for first round where I'm going to go on and beat Sean Cowie, who's a great racer, good friend. Matter of fact, he just let me sit in his car at Indy, pull an alcohol car. But so we're pulling up, and it's behind a golf cart. And when the golf cart stopped, the car stopped. So they went over this little hump going downhill, and when the dragster was going downhill, they hit the brakes on the golf cart. Well, I had reached up to grab my gloves, and there were so many people lining, where that crossover was. I looked up at the people, they hit the brakes, and the dragster ran into the back of the golf cart. Ouch. And you talk about dumb. And it's almost like the Lord saying, okay, here's what you can do. Now, well, here's what I'm going to do. Because I go from like the lowest of lows, and then winning that first round race was just like off the charts. And thankfully, everybody forgave me. But it bent the wing, and they were just so close to not letting us run. And but we did it, and then went to the final round. And but that was super dumb, and that's literally the only time that my concentration is ever broken once I'm sitting in that car. When I'm sitting in it, I'm not looking at anything else. And that was one moment, one instant, where I took my eyes off and looked where I shouldn't have looked. I looked at all the people, and it was the dumbest thing I ever did. And the only other thing that was a little embarrassing was that particular car, its fuel shut-off was real sticky, and the car had sat for a long time, and it was very difficult to, when you do the burnout, you have to adjust the fuel back. In that particular car, the way the fuel tank is, the fuel would rush forward, and it would lose fuel pressure. It would almost die. And so you had to wait for it to come back up and then adjust the fuel. Well, I did the burnout, and I forgot that, so I went to adjust it down, and then when the fuel slots forward, the engine died. So I had to get out of the car and jump over the wall while somebody else ran. So that was you kind of feel dumb when that happens. But it was a difficult car to drive as far as, that part of it, because the fuel shut-off wasn't right. The cars I drive now, it's real simple, it's real easy, and that was kind of sticky. It was hard. You couldn't adjust it finely, and so I was trying to get on it, but I forgot to wait, because like you said, the fuel sloshes forward, you hear the engine kind of like it's getting ready to die, and then it comes back to life. Well, you have to wait for that before you adjust the fuel, and so I didn't, and I killed it. So that was a dumb thing. But driving the golf cart and the dragster in the back of a golf cart was the worst.
All right. Now, what's been your fondest memory in drag racing?
Well, like I said, I think the first time that I won against Marty Sacker, my dad died in '77. I accepted the Lord in 1978. 1988, and basically 10 years later, let go of drag racing. 1998. I actually had this dream, and it was so real. I'm sitting in a dragster, and I knew it was a black helmet, tears going down my face, and the presence of God upon me, and I just felt this joy beyond words. Well, I was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, am I supposed to race or what? And I had no idea. I stayed healthy in case the door ever opened. But 20 years later, from 1990 to 2018, that race with Marty Thacker, when I pull around and I hear the Bob Unkerford talking on the announcement saying that I won, I sat there with tears going down my face. I felt the presence of God and this joy beyond words, and it was the exact dream. When I think back to the dream in 1998 and the moment in 2018, there's no difference in the dream. It's the exact same event. And so that right there, just a pastor, I got 14 kids, I don't have any money. How in the world could I ever do this? And you got Antron and Brian helping me get my license, and then sponsors helping me to race, and then here I am, first time down the track, actually win with an 024 light, and just the joy and the presence of the Lord. It was like my heavenly dad, God, saying, here, I'm going to let you do this. And the Bible says God is a father to the fatherless and widows. And I can tell you right now that from the moment my dad died, that God's been like my dad, and he's taking care of me, and I mean my mom, my brothers. So that first win, nothing will pass that. That was awesome.
Now, between drag racing and being a minister, do you have any time for any other hobbies?
You know, my biggest problem is I have trouble sitting still, so I do a lot of stuff. But, you know, before the racing started, to stay healthy, because I wanted to be fit for doing this, I had 5 years of weightlifting and then 12 years of triathlons. And so I've done 4 Ironman triathlons, which is 2.5 mile swim, which takes an hour and a half. You bike 112 miles, it takes 6 hours, and then you run a full marathon, 26 miles, that takes 5 hours. And so I've done 4 of those. And so I was very obsessed with fitness, and whenever I would work out and swim or bike or run, I was always listening to Bible messages I was going to teach, because as a pastor, I teach verse by verse of the Bible. So when I teach a chapter, I do the next chapter next week. I can get 5 different teachers, put on my iPhone, earphones, and I can listen while I'm running, biking, or lifting weights. I don't have the headphones where you can swim and listen, because I don't know if I could hear it well anyway. But so physical fitness is huge for me. And when this virus hit and everything kind of got shut down, it allowed me to do a lot of home projects. I've probably done 10 things for my wife, you know, that more than I've done the previous 10 years, and just since January. And but you know, the church takes a lot of time. I got 13 grandkids now, so there's never a moment to spare. You know, I got home from Indy, took a shower, had to go to a pastor meeting Monday night. And then this morning, 6 a.m., a men's prayer meeting. Came home, unpacked everything, and now I got to get ready for church on Wednesday. And then I'm kind of checking on sponsorship possibilities for the Bowling Green race at the end of the month. So never a moment to be still, really.
Busy, busy, busy.
Well, you know what? It's all, you know, my focus is people. I want to be a blessing to everyone I meet. You know, my wife first. You know, when she wakes up, goes to the bathroom, I make the bed, make her coffee, have it ready when she gets out. She's my first priority. And then, like you said, I got a lot of kids. And so there's always somebody's car to fix or something where I can do for one of them. And just, you know, it's trying to get time with them, especially the younger ones. Then the grandkids are there. And, you know, this house, there's a lot of things that need to be done. But actually, thankfully, like I said, I'm caught up. And then there's church people, you know, and my priorities are always going to be the Lord, my wife, my kids, the church, then racing. I'm not going to let racing come ahead of those other ones. And that's probably the biggest struggle, is making sure I don't let it come before them, because it cannot be the most important.
Now, would the best way for people to follow you where you're going to be racing at, would that be the Facebook page, the Hope Over Heroin Dragster Mike Bucher page?
Yep. That's, you know, I had a Hope Over Heroin Dragster page, and somebody had hacked into the email, went on Marketplace, put some fraud ad, and all this stuff was going to and Facebook shut that page down. They thought I was doing it. It wasn't me. And so I had to rebuild a new one. So instead of Hope Over Heroin Dragster, it's Hope Over Heroin Dragster, then Mike Bucher. And so I've rebuilt that. And so what I'll do is I'll put things, past races, and then when new stuff's coming up, I'll put that on there. And then I have my normal Facebook page, and then coverage up in Cleveland. There's a lot of Bible stuff that's on there. And then YouTube, if you put in Mike Bucher, you'll get a bunch of drag racing videos and a bunch of Bible messages. And I tell people the Bible messages are more important than the drag racing ones.
Well, awesome, Mike. I want to thank you very much for taking time to do this interview. Now, you have any final words?
Well, you know what? First of all, thank you. We finally got this done. And, you know, I'll say what I say to little kids when I put them in the dragster. And I'll let them sit there. I give them this great experience. And I say, you know what? Drag racing is cool. And they're like, yeah. And I go, but I know something better. They're like, what? And I say, Jesus. Because you know what? Drag racing was everything to me. When I lost my dad, And then you know what? I was an angry, lost, lonely 15-year-old. And somebody told me what it means to ask Jesus in my heart, and I did. And a peace and a joy came into me that changed